Recording. There we go. Welcome everybody to Thrive's Lunch and Learn today. Today's topic will be archiving data in CRE. Your presenter will be Ben Dorman. Today's session will be recorded and a link will be made available to all attendees. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Cal. All right, welcome everybody. Today we're going to have a bit of a high-level look at the data that you can archive in Sage CRE and where you would go to do that. There's a lot of modules in CRE, so we're just going to be having the high-level look at them. If we go into detail, we could quite easily be here for a couple of hours. Whilst I love data archiving, not everyone wants to spend a couple of hours listening to archiving discussions. So what are the reasons that you'd want to archive your data? Some of the main reasons would be that you want to tidy up your data as well as improving performance when running reports. By reducing your current file size, especially with the transaction-based reports, it's going to reduce the amount of records that the report will need to go through. So, you know, everything being perfect, that should run a lot faster. Probably a couple of things that's important to note here is that data that's moved to the history file, you can generally still run your reports and inquiries on it. You just need to select the history file option when running the report. It's also important to note that archiving any transaction records can take a lot of time. So you really need to schedule this for either after hours or at a time when you're not busy. End of the year over Christmas when everyone's on leaves, generally a good time to have a look at doing archiving activities or any other dead period for you. Okay, so let's move on to have a look at the modules that we'll be reviewing today. So we'll have a brief look at most of the modules from CRE. Not sure who uses which modules here, but we'll go through some of these and some will have a bit more detail than others. It'll be at a high level, and if you'd like any detailed information about any of these modules, please contact us after the session today for assistance. Okay, so we'll have a look first at the AP and AR modules. So for accounts payable, the main things that we will look at archiving will be vendors and payments. With vendors, if you have any vendors that you haven't used for a while, maybe a couple of years or something, and they're just cluttering up your selection lists when you're doing invoices and stuff, you might just want to go through and make them inactive. Now to do that, you go into the setup menu in AP and go to the vendor record, bring that up, and then on the general tab for the vendor, there'll be a inactive checkbox, and you just tick that, and that makes the vendor inactive. So when you're bringing up lists of current vendors, it won't appear on there. It's very easy to undo that and make them active again. You just go back into the vendor record, setup, and untick that box. So if you start using a vendor again, maybe Mitre 10, for example, after a couple of years, you can just go back and unselect it, and then it's available to use again. The other data that we would look at archiving would be our payments in AP. When you do this, this is in the Tools menu under the Move Payments Current to History option. When you do this, this will move all the payments that you select and the related invoices to the history file. You'll get prompted for a cutoff date here, and we always recommend keeping the previous financial year. So if we were to do it today, we'd suggest that you select a cutoff date of no later than 30th of June 2020. That's going to hold true pretty much for most of the modules that we'll discuss, where it asks you for a cutoff date, because you always want to be able to report on last year's data. Very important to note that anything that you do select to move to the history record for AP cannot be moved back to the current file, so you really need to be careful here. Okay, moving on to accounts receivable. All right, for accounts receivable, the things that we'd look at archiving here are customers, as well as the invoices. Now with customers, it's pretty much the same sort of thing as the vendors for AP. You can make any old customers that you haven't dealt with for a while to be inactive. And to do that, you'd go into the setup, select the customer record, and then on the status tab for that customer, there's a field called status, and you just select inactive as their status. To archive the invoices, we need to go into our tools menu, and in there we need to select our move invoices current to history. Again, this is another one where you'll be prompted for a date range, so be careful about what you select to archive. Unlike AP, however, these can be moved back from the history file to the current file, so it's not as risky a proposition. Next up, we'll look at cash management and contracts. Okay, for cash management, we'll basically be looking at archiving the transactions. All right, and most, like the other modules, most of these transaction-based archiving actions happen on the tools menu. So we'd go into tools and select move entries, register to history. We're going to be prompted to enter in a date range. I believe it's the start and end date. And this is another one to be careful for, because you cannot move the transactions back from the history to the current file. Okay, contracts module. Any closed contracts that you have, you can archive those by going into the tools menu and selecting move closed contracts current to history. This is, if you need to, you can move these ones back from the history to current file. So it's not as risky again. Okay, moving on to equipment cost and general ledger. So for equipment cost, we're looking at archiving transactions here. This again is under the tools menu, under move transactions current to history. You'll need to select the date conditions for these transactions. Example, the accounting date less than or equal to 30th of June 2020. And these can't be moved from the history to the current file, so be careful when selecting what dates to use. General ledger. So general ledger, we're looking at just doing the transactions for this one as well. Similar to the others, it's under the tools menu under move transactions current to history. This is probably one of the bigger files that you want to look at doing archiving for. So to do that one, you'll want to select some conditions to get the date range that you want. There's a whole pile of conditions you can put in there, cutoff date and account ranges or other conditions. This one can't be moved back from history to current, so you need to be very careful with that. Okay, next up is inventory and job cost. Inventory is another one where we'd look at archiving the transactions. Again, it's under the tools menu for move data, move IC transactions to history. And this is one that can't be moved back from history to current. Next up is our job cost module. Job cost is one where we would look at moving some of the, or closing old jobs. So if you've got any jobs that are done or no longer relevant, what you want to do is go into the job record and mark them as closed. And to do that, we just go into the setup, jobs, on the status tab, select the status field and choose closed. Okay, that's quite important for the next stage, which is moving the transactions. So to move, archive any old transactions, this is in your tools menu and it's move transactions current to history. You'll only want to archive transactions for closed jobs. You obviously don't want to archive anything that's underway still. So you'll need to apply conditions when you're doing this to only select the closed jobs. These can be moved back from the history to current. So if you need to revisit an old job, you can just reopen the job and then transfer the transactions back. Any assistance you need with that, please feel free to contact us. All right, next up we have payroll and project management. Payroll is, archiving in payroll is pretty much covered up under our, pretty thoroughly under our end of the year lunch and learns, but we'll just briefly go through this now. So we want to move any old checks, archive those in payroll. Now, we'll only generally do this at the start of the financial year. So you're starting the new financial year with a clean slate. And this is under your tools menu, under move checks, current to history. Very important to just be careful what you're moving here because these can't be moved back from history to current. So just take a bit of care there. Project management. Okay, so much like job cost, we want to be able to archive any jobs that are no longer relevant to us. So if you've got any closed project management jobs, then we just go into our tools, move jobs, and what will happen is this will open up like a migration wizard, which will help you move the files. Okay, next up we have property management, purchasing and remote time. Property management, we're only really going to look here at, I'm not sure how many people use this module, but we're only going to look at clearing out the paid items here. And to do that, we're going again into the tools menu, and we're going to select clear paid items, and we'll be prompted for a cutoff date. So you just need to add that in, and that will move those items into history. Purchasing, a bit like inventory, we've got the ability to archive any purchase orders and change orders or receipts and invoices. To do this, both of these are under the tools menu. There's two options there, and the tools move data. One is the move POs and COs to history, and the other one is move receipts and invoices to history. These ones can't be moved back from history to current, so if you are going to go and archive any of these records, please take care. Finally, that takes us to the remote time module. This one, we're looking at archiving time records, and to do that, it's in our tools menu, and it's move time current to history. These records can be moved back, however, from history to current, so it's not as risky as some of the others. Okay.
Sorry, Ben, can I just jump back in that last slide?
Definitely.
In the PO module, of course, it's a system default that only POs and change orders that have a closed status will archive. So, you know, don't panic that it's something, if something's partially receipted, the system won't let you archive that.
Thank you for that, Janelle. I glossed over that. That is a very important point. Okay, does anyone have any questions at all? Gone a bit quicker than I thought it would.
You're too efficient, Ben. Can I just make another general comment as well?
Anything you feel relevant.
Yeah, if you do archive something, you know, by mistake, it's not the end of the world. Don't panic. You know, for example, if you're archiving your payroll stuff and you meant to archive only a couple of years ago when you archived last year as well, it's not the end of the world. I certainly wouldn't panic. It's the equivalent of putting a file back into the second filing cabinet instead of putting it into the top filing cabinet. It just means next time you run a report for that date range in payroll, you have to point your report to the history file instead of the current file. So yeah, definitely nothing to panic about if you miss the date range.
Something that's probably didn't get brought up at the start is it's never a bad idea to do a backup before you do any major archiving activities, because that way, if you do accidentally go and archive the wrong data, you can just restore from the backup records and essentially start again. So again, that takes a bit of pressure off you if you muck it up along the way.
And of course, Ben, users can't be logged into that module while you're archiving it. And
That's
of
right.
course, it's not something you would sit there and watch. It's about as interesting as watching paint dry. So, you know, it's one of those things where, like Ben said earlier, you know, around Christmas time when there's not many people in the office is always a good time, because we always know the accountants work during that time. And, you know, maybe set it going on your way out the door when everyone else is logged out. Just set one module going each night, and then you can check the report in the morning when you come back in, or, you know, on your way out to Friday lunch or whatever. It's the only thing we have trouble with is predicting how long it will take. You know, it certainly won't take 10 hours, but a module could take, you know, maybe an hour if you haven't archived for a long time.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Janelle. The more data that you've got to archive, the longer it's going to take. And again, that's one of the reasons why we suggest doing it during a slow time or after hours. You know, anytime where it's just not pressure, because as Janelle mentioned, you can't access job cost while you're in the process of archiving job cost records.
I do have one general question, which is, Dale Hardy, why have you linked in to us?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello Dale, long time no here.
Yeah, we're still using the system, so I'm still active on the system for a while. I want to keep my skills fresh, eh? You never know when they're going to be needed again. There must be someone wanting Sage 300 CRE experience in Melbourne who was born after moon landings.
Yeah. So just for everyone else's benefit, Dale's kind of in between two systems at the moment. So
between a rock and a hard place.
Still more than welcome to attend any of these, Dale.
Oh yeah, I'll go to the opening of an envelope.
I'm with you. Any more
It's just a
questions
pity
from anyone?
we just don't serve the champagne, do we?
Oh, yeah, we'll have to talk to John about that. So have we got any questions from anyone? Well, good. Look, if you have any dramas or you're not sure where to go to next, feel free to give us a yell and just contact the help desk and we'll help you out. We've got a number of more detailed notes that we can provide you with as well, instructions. And if you have specific questions or anything that wasn't covered today, get in contact with us and we'll help you out.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. That was good. And to everyone else, I'd say, don't be frightened of archiving. Give it a go. You'll never look back. It'll do your system the world of good.